well. And we like doing them. We have good results with them. But if you don't need them, you're winning. Okay? So realize that. Because anything I do is going to fail at some point in time, and I'm going to do it again. You live long enough. Okay? Anything I do at some point in time is going to fail. And you'll need it again. And if you can avoid it, avoid it. Now, if you can't and you've done the other things, great. And you need that. But realize you kind of have to cross that threshold and say, hey, have I exhausted my options? And sometimes it's as easy as setting my wristwatch so I don't get my bladder too full. Because when I'm watching television, or when I'm working at the computer, or when I'm doing whatever, I may not realize that my bladder's getting full and I'm not getting that nerve input that I once had. And when I get up, it's too late. Okay? Some people taper the fluids back. We always kind of balance the fluid restriction. If you're a kidney stone former, don't restrict your fluids, obviously. You know, if you're making 2 liters of urine in a 24-hour period, that's more than enough. That means you're usually drinking about 2.5 to 3 liters. If you're drinking 5 liters because you think it's making you healthy, you're selling yourself a lie, okay? No data for that. America's kind of crazy on how much fluid we drink. The rest of the world laughs at us. Our voiding diaries, when we write down how much we pee, average North American male is about 1.8 liters, what they pee out per 24 hours. That's about 400 milliliters higher than everybody else around the world. So, for whatever reason, we like to hydrate. Some people take it to the nth degree, though, and they're drinking gallons, and don't do that, because it's going to make this worse. Beyond self-help, what can you do? So we also need to throw weight loss in there. It's not there. Pelvic floor physical therapy. Pelvic floor physical therapy is a world to itself. If you go to a physical therapist and say, I want pelvic floor physical therapy, they're going to say, get out of my office. Or if they don't, they probably should, unless they do that for a living. You really want somebody that does that all the time, because physical therapists, they're awesome at what they do. When my back hurts, I go see a physical therapist, and they make me feel great. I'm like, these people are really cool. Those people are great at treating knees, shoulders, elbows, backs. They just never learn to do the pelvis, okay? They have to kind of have a desire to do it, and they have to kind of have the initial output to get through the training and to get the equipment they need. Otherwise, they're wasting your time, and they're wasting their time as well. So ask around. Find out who actually wants to do pelvic floor physical therapy before you go see them, because the average physical therapist doesn't do it. They don't want to do it. They haven't invested the time or the capital to get what they need to do it right, and just be careful with that, okay? Can it help? It can. At the same time, if you're a fluorally incontinent and you're going through 5 diapers a day, it's not going to do a thing. You know what? If the sphincter doesn't work and the sphincter's not there, they can't rehab it. So somebody who's got 1 pad a day urinary incontinence, physical therapy is probably worth doing. If you're not that, if you're high volume, you're probably wasting your time. The good news is it's just time you lost, okay? So it's not like, wow, we did something, we can't undo it. It's just realize it's probably not going to be the best thing for you. Biofeedback falls in that. Coping pads. No one died of wet pants. If you're too sick to have an operation, don't get an operation. If they say you can't come off your blood thinner because you're going to have a stroke, okay, I'm sorry. You got to stay on your blood thinner and we don't get an operation. That's okay. You got to realize that this is a huge quality of life thing, but at the same time, we can't hurt you doing it. And if what we're going to do is going to potentially cause a problem like a stroke or something else, don't do it. That's just not worth it. There are pads that are so much better than they ever were before, and they continue to get better and better. Unfortunately, they continue to get more and more expensive as well. Common catheters, pretty nice if they can work for you. Not everybody has them work, and a lot of it is penis dependent. If your penis is really small, condom catheters aren't going to work as well because there's not as much tissue to seal the condom catheter onto. And we gave you therapy for your prostate cancer that made your penis smaller. No question about it. Penises get smaller after surgery, penises get smaller after radiation therapy, penises get smaller because you're not getting erections. And if those things happen, guess what? You lose penis length. What else makes penises smaller is weight. If you lose weight, about 25 pounds, about an inch of functional length of the penis. And the reason for that is that penis is stuck to that pubic bone just like the prostate is, but your belly is not. And as you gain weight, that belly buries your penis, and that pushes the condom catheter off. That makes your penis smaller. So it's not just the surgeons that take your prostate out, it is sometimes us too. Penile clamps. Does anybody use this? Or I don't know. Penile clamps are not great. If they work and you're used to them, bless you, you're lucky. We've had some people come in where they hadn't taken that penis clamp off for 3-4 days. They caused, necrosis, lost big chunks of penis. And there are some pretty horrific things that we've seen from penile clamps. So if you do use them, please let the penis breathe. Please take that clamp off more often than not. Please still go use the bathroom. Please don't wear it at night. They're there. They have a role, but their role is small in my mind.
Does biofeedback include PFES?
Does that include pelvic floor physical therapy? Is that what you're talking about?
Electrical stimulation.
Yeah.
Pelvic floor electrical stimulation. Same as biofeedback.
So a whole world unto itself, right? Pelvic floor physical therapist. And that's why I said if you're going to do it, make sure you go to somebody that does it. So there are nerve stimulators that they will use. That can be things like posterior tibial nerve stimulation, where you're coming in and getting a little acupuncture needle behind your ankle bone, and they stimulate you there for urge incontinence to actually direct, stimulation of the pelvic floor muscles to contract as well. The levators kind of pull everything up into the pelvis. So those all go along. Biofeedback, actually, when you say biofeedback in its purest sense, is, okay, am I doing a Kegel or not? And they have a little electrode that's reading if you're doing a Kegel. So you'll have a little smiley face that smiles at you when you do it. A lot of the work in biofeedback actually came from pediatrics. So what happened, kids would not relax to pee, and they became dysfunctional voiders, and they would have little games where if they relax their pelvis, they'd do good things on the computer screen. And that was the really great biofeedback they have. And there's a whole group of nurses at the urology clinic at Children's Hospital that do that for them. It's kind of cool. But that's not the biofeedback we see in post-prostatectomy incontinence, but that's where a lot of that work was done. So biofeedback isn't really electrical stimulation, it's just, are you doing it or not? Costs. We talked about this, I can't take enough luggage with me to bring my pads to Europe. What do we do? You guys may or may not know this, but thousands of dollars people are spending on incontinence, pads, diapers, what have you. The VA actually will pay for some of them. The Army will not pay for any of them. My understanding is Medicare is not paying for any of them. Is that right? Does anybody know if Medicare paid for pads?
Not true.
Some Medicare will pay?
Medicare has paid for all my catheters, I don't buy pads. I don't try to buy pads.
No, they pay for catheters. I'm talking pads or diapers. Do they pay for that?
I haven't asked them to.
Okay.
I don't know the answer.
I've heard no. The catheters are a different beast. And there's you have to let somebody drain their bladder, otherwise, they die. So that puts them in hospitals, and that costs a lot more. Wet pants doesn't cost them anything. So my understanding is they're not paying for pads right now, but if someone knows different than that, let me know, because that sure could be the case. What do we do from a surgeon standpoint once we've kind of exhausted everything else? We're really talking about two things, okay? American medical systems makes the majority of these things, okay? So do realize that. They've been in this business for a long time. The sphincter is more or less unchanged for about 40 years when they finally got to the device that worked. And it really is the gold standard for post-prostatectomy incontinence, especially high-volume incontinence, okay? And what is high volume? High volume is the man that's shaving at the bathroom sink and he's dripping on his toes, okay? So if you have that kind of incontinence, you need a sphincter. You just do, okay? There's nothing you're going to do to make that better. 2007, I think, is when the trial started in the United States, maybe 2006, the male sling came on board. So we used to do slings. So women have had slings forever. We've been doing slings for female incontinence, for activity-related incontinence, 100 years to go back. This is nothing new. Why didn't they do it for men? We can put a sling in a woman, you can't put a sling in a man. What the heck's wrong with you guys? Well, guess what? They did it. The problem was they'd violate that place between the bladder and the pubic bone. So to get your prostate out, you used to have to drop your bladder down, and you still do, and take your prostate out, and then the bladder scars back to the pubic bone. And that operation and that scar afterwards made it so we couldn't pass the sling up to the anterior abdominal wall. Okay? So that's all it was. They do it, and 25% of the time they'd get in the bladder, they'd have to abort. So they said, this is silliness, stop the insanity, don't do this anymore. Females, doesn't have that problem. They don't violate that space, even if you're doing a hysterectomy or something else down in the pelvis. It just doesn't violate the space like taking the prostate out. Late 90s, transobturator tape came along for women. So instead of going to the abdominal wall, they go up through the thighs. So there's a couple holes in your pelvis down low. You can pass the tape through there. A couple of Austrians were smart enough to say, why don't we do this on men? And that's where the male sling came about. And, you know, AMS was the one that really said, hey, this is a great idea, and they ran with it. The competitors, Coloplast, they have their own version of a sling, which is available in the United States as well. A lot more mesh. Probably works similarly, just a lot more mesh. Not a big fan of it, to be honest. So these are the two things. So what do they work for? So if you come in and you say, I'm leaking, doc, I say, oh great, let's talk about how much you leak. We try and get a quantification of that. It can be as simple as how many pads are you going through a day, but a pad is not a pad is not a pad. And for that reason, I actually want you to bring in a dry pad and bring in all your wet pads so I can get an idea of how much you're leaking and weight. Because someone might have a drop of urine on their pad and say, oh, that's pad 1, I don't want that anymore. Someone else may come in and the diaper weighs 2 pounds, and they're like, okay, that's 1 pad. So it's nice to weigh them. And we say, okay, well, let's get the rest of your history. Have you been radiated or not? Because that is a big break point for therapeutic options. And then we say, let's see what your urethra looks like. Let's see what your sphincter looks like. So we scope you. We take a little camera. We go in through your penis in the clinic. You're awake. And we get to your sphincter mechanism. And we say, go ahead and squeeze down. Show me your kegel. And if that kegel is intact and there's no scars in that sphincter, then we drive up a little higher. And that anastomosis, where they sewed the urethra back to the bladder, looks wide open and patent and pretty, and is not scarring off like some men's do. Then, those are the piece of information we need. The low volume incontinent man, the intact sphincter, the non-radiated man is the one that gets a sling, in my opinion. Okay? And what are the results if you pick that population? It depends how you ask the question, and it depends how wet you are. Okay? So the lower your volume of incontinence is, the better you're going to do. In reality, it's about 85% improved. Okay? About 15%, I went through an operation and didn't do anything for me. So you need to know that. Okay? So it's not subtle. 15%. We put a sling in them, and they're like, it's kind of the same, doc. Sorry. You cut my perineum, you stabbed me, you put some mesh in, and it didn't do a whole lot for me. And you need to know that. The total dry rate, if I ask you, are you dry? Do you wear pads at all? Do you do whatever activity you want to do? It's about 60% are total dry. Okay? So it's about that 25% in between. Like, I'm better. Not 100% better, but I'm better. The men that really do well with the sling are the guys that come in and they say, you know what, I'm wearing 1 to 2 pads a day. I'm not able to do the activities I want to do, and I want to kind of get my quality of life back. Okay? I think that man that then has not been radiated and has an intact sphincter, I think that man is going to do really well with a sling. And I often say, what do you want? Do you want to hit singles all day long, or do you want to hit home runs? And that sounds stupid, but in a sense, you strike out a fair bit of time to swing for home runs. And that's kind of what a sling is. If it works, it's like, hey, this is great. I don't have any moving parts. The durability, meaning the chance of me having to re-operate on you if you're dry, is quite low. And you hit the home run. You are as dry as you're going to be. But you're also going to strike out far more. You say, you know what, I want to hit singles all day long, or I don't qualify because I've been radiated, because I have high volume incontinence, because I have a sphincter that doesn't look like it closes right, then you get a sphincter. And a sphincter is really nice. And a sphincter before 2007 was all we had. And it still is the gold standard for post-prostatectomy incontinence, but it's not as great as a sling is. And the reason for that is when we talk about success in a sphincter, we say, are you dry, yes or no? Okay, you're dry, great, success. How many pads did you wear? 1 pad a day? Great, success. So when we're talking 95% success rates, that means 1 pad a day. That's not dry. Okay? So those numbers on all the studies are 1 pad or less per day for total dryness for sphincters. And that's actually a fair thing for sphincters if you think about how they work. Because the sphincter wraps around your urethra. It is a new cuff that should function like your native sphincter does, that has resting tone that squeezes the urethra shut. I can't make it squeeze too tight. Because if it squeezes too tight, it's going to squeeze a hole in your urethra, and we're back to where we were. Okay, so we have a pressure balloon that AMS figured out the right numbers to do, and it's about 60 to 70 centimeters of water that balloon squeezes on your urethra. They make actually higher ones, and I don't know many people that ever implant them, because the rate of erosion when you go to the higher pressure balloons goes up. And for that reason, You know, they're kind of archaic, they're kind of on the shelf, and, you know, some puts them in a different location, bladder neck around the prostate, whatever, other reasons. Yeah, but where we are, we're really looking at that kind of 61 to 70 centimeters water pressure. Now, like, what is 61 to 70 centimeters water pressure? I don't know what you're talking about. Relate this to me. If you sneeze hard, it's about 120 centimeters water pressure, okay? So you're going to overcome the resistance of your sphincter, and you're going to leak with the sneeze. And that's success in an artificial urinary sphincter. But also the happiest man that I see in my clinic is the guy that comes in and he's wearing 5 full diapers a day, and we get him down to a panty liner. So you got to put things in context, and where are you, and what can you anticipate, and what's realistic for it. That kind of makes sense? So it's kind of a spectrum. The wetter you are, the more likely you're going to have a sphincter. The more things you've had done to you, radiation, the more likely you're going to get a sphincter. And then realize that the sphincters break. So if you get 10 years out of a sphincter, you won. And we take it out and put it on back in. Not a big deal to do. It's just realize that they do have some failures that we have to go back and revise later. Do you have any sphincters here? Do you have any in your car? Have you guys seen sphincters? Has anybody actually taken a look at these before? Awesome, thank you. So 3 pieces. How does it work? You have a little pump that's buried inside your scrotum, okay? This is inside your skin. This is not sticking outside your body. If somebody's not looking closely at you, they won't realize you have it. When you go into the ER and they put a catheter in you, if you don't tell them you have it, they won't know you have it. So realize that it's there, okay? And you kind of got to own it. And you get a little wrist bracelet or something else that says, I have sphincter, don't put a catheter in me, etc. You get a little cuff here, and the little cuffs come in a bunch of different sizes. And you dissect the male urethra back in the perineum, the same spot you milk the urethra. It's that same exact spot where we put the cuff, and it just wraps around. And then you have a little pressure balloon, and this little pressure balloon is put in through a little counter incision up here. So you end up with 2 cuts, one in the belly, one down between your legs. When you want to go pee, you find the pump in your scrotum, and you pump it twice usually. That pulls fluid out of cuff, puts it back in pressure balloon, and you pee. And the great thing is you don't need to do anything then. The cuff will fill back up on its own, okay? So it's a pressure system. The only thing you have to do is pump the pee, and then you're good. And it'll fill back on its own. It takes about 90 seconds to refill the cuff. A lot of guys wear a security pad because they don't want to wait for 90 seconds to stall after they're done peeing to get dry. So they're like, shake, shake, put it away, walk out, get a little spot on their shorts. That's kind of like a lot of men are, even if they don't have a sphincter and they don't, haven't had anything done anyway. But realize that that's that. This really has not changed other than getting impregnated with antibiotics in about 40 years. The antibiotic came on, what, 03? Somewhere in there, a little earlier maybe? Somewhere right around that time they impregnated with antibiotics, which means we had a little less rate of infection. Complications of this device, 1, I told you it's going to break. So if you get 10 years out of it, you won, okay? 2 is that, guess what? The urethra, the tube you pee through that's underneath this cuff will get smaller, okay? Can you imagine if we put your arm in a cast for 10 years and we took the cast off, what your arm would look like? It's kind of what we're doing to your urethra when we put a cuff around it, okay? So you can get small urethra under the cuff. You might start leaking a little more. You might notice just a few more pumps on the pump to get, all the way empty. And we can downsize your cuff, remove the cuff if that happens. Infection, about 2-3% rate of infection now that they're antibiotic impregnated. And then erosion. And erosion means hole in the urethra. If you get a hole in the urethra, the device got to come out. You got to cool everything off 3 months and go back and put it back in. The rate of erosion is highly dependent if you've been radiated or not. So if you've not been radiated, it's about a 1-2% rate of erosion. If you've been radiated, it's over 10%. 1 out of 10 guys that's been radiated, we put a cuff in, we're going to lose that cuff and we're going to come back and do it again. And there are some things we do to try and decrease that. We take part of your penis actually to do it, and there's different ways we can do to try and decrease that, but realize you're much higher rate of eroding just because your body does not heal once you've been radiated like it did before. I'm just going to leave this over here. You guys can take a look at that if you're interested at all. Thanks so much. And do you have a sling? Okay. Sling is about that big. This piece of mesh. It's really soft. They actually had a change in it. It's out now, as my understanding. It came out in January. Yeah. So they made it retain itself a little better. There were some people that say they were knocking their slings loose because they get a little too active a little too soon, and the body has to scar into the sling before it can work. So there's some new improvements as of January that will hold it in place a little better. What does the operation really take time-wise? Sling takes about 45 minutes to do. If you want to go home the same day, you go home the same day. Artificial sphincter takes about an hour and a half to do. If you want to go home the same day, you go home the same day. If you want to spend a night overnight, fine too. Either way, it's very reasonable. It depends what your hospital's set up to do and what your comfort level is. Slings, I talked about how well they work. Sometimes they work too well. About 1% of the time, you'll get someone going urinary retention where they can't pee afterwards. Probably less than 1%. I've put in hundreds of these in the last 12 years now for slings. When I started as a fellow, we put in, where I did the fellowship was one of the initial trial sites, so they were doing multiple slings every week. And I've seen one person go into retention from a sling that we had to cut and drop it down 4 weeks later because they still weren't peeing. And talking to other people who do a lot of the stuff as well, they're kind of like, yeah, I've had my one person that went into retention, but pretty unusual. You get a little bit of void dysfunction, we like to say, which is short-term urinary retention. We have to catheterize for a while, but most of the time that's gone within 24, 48 hours. I've done a lot of talking. I'm sorry. I'm losing you guys. What questions do you guys have for me? Yes?
If I have VA benefits, would TriMed take care of that?
Well, what do you mean? Take care of what?
Surgery and
So
treatment of this.
the VA will cover these, I know for sure. DoD will cover these for sure. I believe Medicare will cover them, and most private insurance will cover these. Now, the continence surgeries are far easier to get approved out in the outside world, is my understanding, than the erectile dysfunction ones. But Medicare will work for either one of those, is my understanding.
Will it be part A or part B or both?
I don't know, I'm sorry. I don't have great information on what they cover. Military, it's like, when we say you're good for surgery and you want it, we move forward, sorry. Yes?
I heard you mention something about kidney stones, but I didn't catch it.
Oh, yeah, so one of the things to make your continence better is don't drink so much, so you're not made to store as much and get rid of as much. But if you're a stone former, you shouldn't drop your total urine production less than about 2 liters a day, otherwise you're going to get a lot more stones and cause a lot of other problems. Yes?
Yes, doctor, what would you do to find somebody that's as well trained as you? And what questions would you ask that doctor so that you knew that they were really good?
So the great thing is you can Google everybody now and you can kind of figure out what their training is. So see what they did and where they did it.
Right.
So that's thing one. And then thing two, do you trust them when you talk to them? If you don't trust them, the problem is if you don't trust somebody at the outset and there are known complications and you have said known complication, you're going to be angry. So, and it goes both ways. If I feel that someone doesn't trust me from the get-go, I say, you need to go talk to somebody else. And sometimes they come back, like, okay, yeah, they said the same thing as you. Go ahead and do it. Great, but realize it's a partnership, and anybody that tells you anything else, I wouldn't want them as my doctor. And if the patient didn't say, you know what, I'm going to meet you halfway, then I don't know that I want you as a patient either. You know what, if you're not going to manage your diabetes and you come in and your hemoglobin A1C is 12, I don't want to operate on you because my complication rate is going to be horrible and your outcome is going to be horrible. So it's a partnership to get you to the spot you need to be, and if you're not going to meet me halfway, I don't really want to operate on you. And if you don't trust me enough to do what I say you should do before, then you don't want me to operate on you. So that's that. And then just ask them, how many times have you done this? How many have you done?
What's a good number?
Depends on the operation, depends on the surgeon, you know.
Yeah.
You know, some people can drive, stock cars when they're 18 years old. I mean, how do you explain that? I don't know. They can. Some people could never drive a stock car. So that's hard. If they've done it enough that they have people referring you for it, and they've said, you know what, I've done 25 or I've done 50, you're probably in that safe zone.
Okay.
If they say I've done 500, you don't do 500 to something and have bad outcomes. The guy that's doing 500 to something, guess what? He gets the patients people don't want to operate on. And if you looked at his numbers overall, they probably wouldn't look as good as the person that did 25 if you had access to it, but no one really has access to that kind of stuff, including that guy that did 500 unless he's really looking at what he's doing. So realize that. There's a spectrum. You don't want the person that's, and AMS has great data, you don't want the person that puts 2 implants in you a year because your operation's going to take longer, your complication rate's going to be higher, and you're probably not going to be as satisfied with the outcome you got.
But when they say, sure, I can spare the nerves.
Thank you.
So I don't do that operation, so I'm not going to cast stones at those guys. No comment. Yes.
Now, what can you do to reduce the frequency of urination at night? I go to bed at 10,
Yeah.
wake at about 8, and I'm doing 5 or 6 times a
Yeah,
night.
great question. Nocturia is it's its own beast, okay? And do you have daytime symptoms? Do you have frequency during the day?
Pretty much normal during the day.
What is normal?
Oh, every 2.5, 3 hours.
So you make it that long during the day. How long do you make it at night? You in bed 5 hours at night, or are you in bed 10 hours at night?
About an hour and a half to 2 hours.
About an hour and a half, okay. So the things that we can actually make impacts on at night are the following. 1, 3 hours before bed, you don't drink anything. I don't care what it is, I don't care if you're thirsty. If you're complaining to me about getting up at night to pee, again, you gotta meet me halfway and you gotta dehydrate yourself. That's thing 1. Thing 2 is how much swelling do you get in your legs?
Little.
Okay, so if you have swelling, you gotta get your feet up above your bed, above your heart, so you gotta get rid of that fluid. The body is a great store of water in our extremities because of gravity. And you know what, you lay down and gravity's not holding that big gulp in each thigh, and your heart sees volume and it goes, woohoo, I gotta tell the kidneys to make urine, so we end up diuresing a lot or getting rid of much urine at night. 3, are you snore?
Oh, yes, I do.
Do you have sleep apnea?
No.
Have you been checked?
No.
Get checked.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, the reason I say that, those are the big 3 things that we can impact on in a relatively easy way that are actually going to have big benefit for you long term. Nothing worse than getting a whole bunch of medicines at night, etc., and you have sleep apnea and then you get that checked. Okay? Because sleep apnea makes you make more urine and it wakes you up all the time. Are you peeing big volumes or small volumes when you get up at night?
Small.
Small volumes. So get a sleep study. Something else is waking you up as well. Chronic back pain or anything else?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So often if you're waking up with small volumes, it usually means something other than your bladder woke you up. We're so toilet trained not to wet the bed that it's weird. They've done studies where they have a bladder pressure monitor and they have an EEG to see what's going on with the brain waves. And you'll start waking up from something, and all of a sudden, as you get to a certain level, that bladder starts contracting and say, I need to pee. And then you wake up, and you get to that level of awareness, and your bladder's like, hey, I gotta pee. But your bladder didn't get you there. So really look at those things up front. And the other thing is, are you taking any diuretics or water pills in the evening or afternoon? Okay, do you take one at all?
None at all.
Okay.
Water retention in the legs, would a stocking hose help with that?
They do, yeah. So that's great. But even the simpleness of just laying down and putting your feet up on a wall about 3-4 hours before you go to bed for an hour and get some of that fluid off before you lay down can help.
I think about driving to California next month, I'd probably hose you.
Yeah, definitely. Get up, move around. You don't want to get a DVT, blood clot in the leg. That's crazy how that happens, man.
So you're saying about 4 hours before you go to bed, you should have your legs
Yeah, put
elevated?
feet up. Yeah.
And why is that?
You're trying to get rid of the fluid that's stored into your thighs. So you want gravity to work in your favor by pulling the fluid out of your legs, getting it back to your heart processes it and gets it out. And you want that, if you do it, it's weird, I used to tell people to do it like the hour before you go to bed, but it looks like if you do it a couple hours in front of that, you do a little better. And so we've started shifting where we're telling people to do that. It's like, hey, you actually do better if it's kind of evening time, not bedtime, and do it.
You said up on the wall, how high up on the wall?
Above your heart. You gotta have gravity work for you.